In the PURA project, I noted that you saw children every week for 8 weeks, which is a huge commitment. But actually, some of it was online, is that right? Did that make it easier to engage with parents and children on a weekly basis? Because obviously, not only is it a huge commitment of your time and the MDT's time, but for the parents and child as well. So did that work quite well online? Is that how you did it? Or did most of them come to the clinic?
The online session had a different emphasis. It was about peer support. These are children and families going through real great difficulties, feeling very isolated, and working in the online forum where parents were saying, "That's going on with my own son as well, or my daughter as well." Was quite empowering. And for me as a professional facilitating that, it was incredibly humbling, because in that forum I was able to understand for parents the intense emotional upheaval they were going through working with their children with those concerns. And so that really has spurred me to talk about it more widely and move away from a very medical approach to it.
So I think at the start of your talk, you said that obviously you're a paediatrician, and at the start you were led kicking and screaming into the world of constipation. Now clearly you're very dedicated to it. Have you got any tips for people who are wanting to maybe think about setting up a more multidisciplinary team approach like you did so successfully? How did you manage to get everybody on board?
I think that one is to look at these things from the lens of the child. I think we can very much look at it as a professional sort of approach. Think about that child who is not going to school and who is not performing at school, who is being taught as a naughty child, and ask yourself, can you do anything better for that child? And I think if you can, then that's what it requires to stop me kicking and screaming, to say, actually, let's do this. And I think that's really what it's been. And if a lot of these children are not being their best because their tummy is hurting, they're not listening to what the teacher is saying because they're in spasm, they're embarrassed because they are leaking. Now, and if you can change that, actually, for one child, it's a massive, massive kudos to you professionally. But also to the children you're caring for.
Absolutely. And you made it sound so much more, it's not straightforward, but people are getting better, children are getting better in 8 weeks. And these are children who've had symptoms for many years. I think that's really encouraging. I love the way you've taken the Bristol Stool Chart and you've turned it into a traffic light system. Makes it even easier. And your formula makes it easy, doesn't it, to work out what's going on. So well done on that. That's really great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And the consistency you said was very important as well, that everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet, as it were.
Yes, I think that the PURA formula is driven by the child. So as a professional, one is not making it up. It's what the child has said. And we all focus on what the good outcome is. The ability to tell people you've got an outcome does two things. One, if in a specified period of time you are no better, then you should be escalated. Something else needs to be done. So it could be referring the child to another center. It may be considering transcendent irrigation. It could be talking to someone else or referring to another specialty. So the timeline focuses the child, the parents, the professional on outcomes that are tangible. And so we move away from the never-ending cycle of one laxative after another. And a child that is just drawn into a rut of unending pain and soiling.
I think from I work with adults when I was nursing, and I think one of the things that we recognise is sometimes things take so long for adults to get into specialist services, and perhaps we can learn from your project because you were seeing your patients weekly and moving them on quickly, and I think it's that whole thing about, you know, escalating treatment quickly is what's needed. So thank you for that. Can I just talk very briefly about the transanal irrigation side of things? And I noticed for a lot of children you also had combination therapy. Do you want to tell me about how did you decide which children got the combination of high and low volume together? Or was that like a deliberate choice at the start, or did it evolve over time that you added one or the other into the mix?
So what one knows is that when children are constipated for a long time, they really do have real problem with rectal distending pressure to get stools out. However, children will struggle with the sort of the equipment of transanal irrigation.
Yeah.
And so one approach will be to try and use a high volume to really improve distending pressure and get things going for those that require it. But it's a complicated equipment, though it's getting better. The other option is to use a low volume that just enables perhaps some of by sensitizing the area, a little bit of volume that might just with additional support then bring about disimpaction with low volume.
Yeah.
However, the idea for combination was one that came from a child himself, because I had been trained on either high volume or low volume, and not necessarily seeing them as one to be used together, but one that could be done separately. But the child suggested that he may benefit from having the low volume on some days and the high volume on other days. And so our service has evolved to use that as you can have one, you can have the other, or you can have the combination. And it opens up choices for the parent and for the child.
And you found that to be beneficial, so that's really great. Everyone's,
because ultimately you want compliance.
Yeah, well done.